Welcome to our Red Hat Government Symposium Executive Insight Series. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're here with Ben Cushing, Federal Health and Science Lead at Red Hat. Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
You're very, very welcome.
So let me start by asking, in this age of open data, how has the federal government really leveraged that data to produce better services and outcomes for the public?
So I would say data is a reflection of what happened in the past and can be used to model the future. And in order to do so, we need to turn that data into knowledge and information. I think the most important development of the current federal digital transformation is the speed in which insights may be derived from that new knowledge and information. And that being said, we as citizens don't feel that impact of those insights until some form of action has been taken. So for instance, government response to areas of high risk wildfire outbreak, or government response to hurricane predictions, emerging novel viruses, cybersecurity threat vectors, and of course, there's always like traditional military response. I think the quality and accuracy of those actions are really the better measure of the success of the open data age. Put more simply, data isn't useful to anyone unless you do something with it. And that something has to be meaningful.
Well, that's a great point. And but maybe more specifically, how is open source technology or platforms playing an important or maybe increasing role as federal government is trying to face some of the critical challenges, such as the COVID-19 response?
Yeah, I mean, more generally, open source technology has really democratized the world's access to quality software. In addition to that, open source has proven itself to be the most effective engine for software development and innovation ever. And because of this, the open source community has been able to scale up rapidly to meet the needs of agencies involved in the COVID-19 response, as well as scaling the infrastructure for the massive shift in workforce to remote locations. I think we kind of lose that angle of it during all of this. The use of automation tools, API security, and container technologies have definitely accelerated during the pandemic. And in addition to that, I'd say one of the most interesting trends has been the use of containers for AI ML. The combination of DevSecOps concepts and the ML lifecycle has brought machine learning into applied workflows in like healthcare, fusion research, and space technology. Just the basic container snapshot has led to accelerated time to science, because scientific peer review can be done consistently and with lower barriers of entry.
That's really interesting. Maybe shifting gears a little and somewhat of a related question, how would you say that open source also enables better cybersecurity for agencies?
There's a number of different ones. The one that resonates the most for me is transparency. It's such a big part of cybersecurity posture. Being able to audit, review signatures, and know the individuals and organizations that have contributed to the code base is a huge advantage. And proprietary software companies, they really carry more of a risk model where the software company may go out of business when malignant code has been injected into their property and products. But the damage is still getting done. In an open source model, we can predict and reject malignant code because of the sheer amount of contribution and the oversight provided by the crowd. It's really, there's just more eyeballs looking at the code, and so there's more opportunity to discover those threat vectors.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then maybe lastly, and more broadly, what trends or technologies in and around the open source community, should federal agencies really be paying attention to as they plan their IT investments in the coming year?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit already with the AI ML growth and containers, but I would say the larger umbrella term that I like to use is intelligent automation. So the rare combination of aggregation of data being turned into computable data, being turned into knowledge and information, and then applying those to some form of workflow. And that whole pattern is really what we're seeing play out because of the open data age. That first step had to be taken. But now that we have that, we can do really incredible things and just, again, raise the quality of the actions that we as individuals and as collectives, whether it's a government or a corporation, those actions become just that much better and have more of an impact on people's lives. And then the other trend that I think is really interesting is edge computing. So when we take those actions, we can actually do it in environments that were traditionally cut off from really intelligent automation. So for instance, if you have patients that are living on a remote island and you need to do some form of inferencing about their health, that health inferencing can be done at their island and you can take action locally. I think this is in a direct response to the general market trend towards cloud computing, which has been a huge boon to everyone. I think now we're starting to see the market shift a little bit towards localization because we can actually deploy cloud native technologies to the edge. And there's some extreme examples like what we've been doing with NASA on the International Space Station. We're actually doing edge computing there using DNA sequencers to look at actual bacteria in the environment. So those are some trends that I'm really honored to get to be involved with, and hopefully everyone's getting to see some of that play out as we put out more and more press releases that talk about this interesting evolution we're engaged in.
Absolutely. Well, Ben Cushing, thank you so much for sharing your observations and your insights with our audience here at the Red Hat Government Symposium.